Think about the last person you fell for, not the one you chose carefully, the one where it happened fast, where something clicked in the first conversation, where you felt seen in a way that was almost uncomfortable, where the pull felt less like a choice and more like a recognition. Now think about how that ended. I want you to hold both of those things at the same time, the feeling of the initial pull and what came after. Because the distance between those two things, between who that person seemed to be and who they turned out to be, that distance is not bad luck. It's a pattern, and it's been running longer than that relationship. Daniel is 31 and lives in Chicago. 3 nights ago, someone he'd been seeing for 4 months sent him a message that started with, "I think you're amazing," but he knew the rest before he finished reading. This is the 3rd time in 6 years. 3 different people. 3 different cities. 3 different reasons. The same result. He can describe his pattern with clinical precision. He's been in therapy long enough for that. But there's a difference between being able to name something and being free of it. Daniel lives in that gap. Maya is 28 and lives in Atlanta. She has a list in her phone, written 2 years ago during a particularly honest night, of everything she wants in a partner. The man she's been seeing for 2 months checks almost every item. He's kind, consistent, doesn't disappear, doesn't need to be managed. And she feels nothing. Not dislike, nothing. A flat, restless absence where attraction is supposed to be. She's ashamed of this. She's also terrified by what it might mean. James is 45 and lives in Seattle. 20 minutes ago, he drove home from a parking lot where he sat for 45 minutes after canceling dinner with a woman named Claire. The 3rd cancellation. Each time, a reason that was technically true and fundamentally false. He likes Claire more than he's liked anyone since his divorce. That's exactly why he keeps canceling. Because the more he lets himself feel it, the more certain he becomes that it will be taken away. So he takes it away first. 3 people, 3 cities, 3 completely different lives. The same invisible architecture underneath all of it. In the late 1960s, psychiatrist John Bowlby proposed something the establishment resisted, that human beings are not primarily rational agents making conscious choices. They are, first, attachment systems. Biological organisms whose nervous systems were wired from birth to seek proximity to a caregiver as a survival strategy. That wiring doesn't disappear when you grow up. It goes underground. The neural system that drove you as an infant to cry when your mother left the room is the same system producing the electricity when you meet someone new. The circuitry that learned in early childhood what closeness feels like, whether it was safe or terrifying, reliable or unpredictable, is running your adult relationships. This is why Daniel's body moves toward women who are emotionally just out of reach. It's not bad taste. It's not a type. His nervous system was calibrated, early, to feel most alive in a specific emotional temperature, one that involves uncertainty, pursuit, the work of trying to earn. That temperature feels like love to him. Not because it is love, because it's what he learned love feels like. An available person who is simply and quietly there doesn't produce the same activation. The signal doesn't register. This is why Maya feels nothing for a man who shows up. Researcher Sue Johnson, who spent 30 years developing emotionally focused therapy, documented this precisely. People with certain attachment histories don't just behave differently in relationships. They perceive them differently. Maya's nervous system learned that her value in a relationship is contingent on being needed, on fixing, on being the stable one for someone unstable. When there's no fixing required, there's no role. And when there's no role, something that feels like boredom arrives, but is actually the absence of the function that makes her feel real. And James. James learned the most painful lesson of all. He learned that to be fully known is to be found inadequate. That closeness is the precondition for the kind of loss that doesn't heal cleanly. So his nervous system developed an elegant, invisible solution. Approach enough to feel the pull, then manufacture distance before the other person can confirm what he already suspects about himself. Claire didn't do anything wrong. James isn't protecting her. He's protecting a wound that is older than she is. None of them chose this. None of them would choose this. This is what was built when they were too young to have any say in it. The first structural practice is one Daniel has been avoiding without knowing it. For the next 30 days, every time you feel a strong initial attraction, that specific pull, that sense of recognition, you write down not what you like about the person, but what the emotional quality of the attraction feels like. Is it the feeling of needing to earn their approval, the thrill of uncertainty, of not knowing if they'll choose you, the specific relief of being with someone who asks nothing from you emotionally? Daniel did this exercise for 11 days before he stopped. Not because it wasn't working, because it was working too well. By day 11, the document looked less like a list of people and more like a portrait of his father. Emotionally intelligent in public, quietly unreachable at home.
You're right.
A man whose approval Daniel spent his entire childhood trying to earn and never quite receiving. The women he'd chosen weren't random. They were variations on a theme he'd been playing since before he could name it. What becomes visible can be worked with. What stays invisible runs the show forever. The core practice is the one Maya has the most resistance to. It's called staying with the uncomfortable calm. The instruction is simple. The next time she's with someone who treats her consistently well, and she feels that low hum of something is missing, she doesn't act on it, doesn't pull back, doesn't check her phone to create a micro moment of distance. She stays. And she writes one honest sentence afterward. When he was kind to me, I felt, and completes it without editing. In the third week of this practice, Maya wrote something that she read 3 times before she believed she'd written it. When he was kind to me, I felt like I was disappearing. Not bored, disappearing. Because the version of herself she'd constructed, the one who fixes, who manages, who earns her place through usefulness, had nothing to do in the presence of someone who simply wanted her there. And a self with nothing to do starts to feel like no self at all. That sentence didn't fix anything, but it ended the confusion. She wasn't bored with him. She was terrified of who she was without a problem to solve. Daniel still rereads that conversation sometimes, less often than he used to, not because the wound closed, because he's starting to recognize the specific temperature he's been chasing, and recognition has made the chase feel less like fate and more like a choice. He's not free of the pattern, but he can see it now, in real time, while it's happening. And seeing it is not nothing. Seeing it is the beginning of everything. Maya went on one more date with the man who checked every item on her list. She told him at dinner something she'd never told anyone, that she didn't know how to be with someone who was simply good to her and that she was trying to learn. He didn't run. He said he appreciated her telling him. She cried in her car afterward, not from sadness, but from the unfamiliar sensation of having been honest about something real and not been left for it. James texted Claire. 3 words. I'm sorry. Again. She called instead of texting back. They talked for an hour. He didn't cancel this time. He sat with the discomfort of being liked, of being chosen, of having someone look at him with warmth and not flinch. It was the hardest thing he'd done in 2 years. It was also, he admitted later to himself in the dark, the first time in 2 years he'd felt something that resembled hope. None of them are healed. None of them have broken free of everything they were built to repeat. But each of them did the one thing that makes any of this possible. They looked directly at the pattern without looking away, and in looking at it, fully, honestly, without the protection of a story, they stepped outside it. just far enough to see that it was a pattern, not destiny, not personality, not the truth about who they are. A learned response to an old situation that no longer exists. Think about the relationship you most want, the one that has felt just out of reach, the one that seems to require a version of you that you're not sure you can be. That version of you doesn't need to be more attractive, more successful, or more healed. They just need to be able to feel the pull toward the familiar wound and pause for 3 seconds. Long enough to ask, is this recognition of something real, or is this my nervous system running a program it learned before I was old enough to choose? That question doesn't always have a clear answer, but the asking of it, repeated, changes the person who asks. The pattern isn't the enemy. It was protection. It kept you safe in a context where safety mattered more than anything else. The problem is not that you built it. The problem is that you're still living inside it, in a world where the original danger is gone, with people who are not the original threat, paying a price that was never meant to be permanent. You don't have to pay it anymore. Not all at once, not perfectly. But starting now, with the next person who produces that specific pull, you can pause. You can write the sentence. You can stay with the uncomfortable calm long enough to find out what's actually there. Daniel did. Maya is learning to. James, sitting in his car in the dark after a phone call with Claire, is beginning to believe that maybe he can too. So can you.